Welcome back to the Adventures of Chris and Mike. In this episode, we're going to be visiting the historic Fort Meade Museum in Sturgis, South Dakota. Join us now as my good friend Chuck Rambo takes us on a tour of the historic Fort Meade Museum.
We go from our Native American room into the 7th Cavalry room, and in our 7th Cavalry room we begin with the first actual commercial development of the Black Hills. Of course, that was the Custer expedition of 1874. The expedition numbers close to 1,200 men with 110 wagons, some 1,900 horses, even 300 head of cattle, the cattle to feed them on the expedition. When they got back to Fort Abraham Lincoln, exactly 2 months later, and they are here during July and August, Custer brags that they have not had to butcher any cattle on the entire trip, and the cattle are in better shape when they get back to Fort Abraham Lincoln than when they began the trip southward. The Custer expedition's purpose was to locate fortification sites, which Custer did not do, and to establish the exact location of Bear Butte, which is what Custer did in his last campsite, August the 14th and 15th, the last site here in the Black Hills, 1874, which is approximately 3 miles due south of Bear Butte, of the Sacred Mountain. Bear Butte was known to be northeast of the Black Hills, and the government's question basically was, are the Black Hills in fact within the Great Sioux Reservation, the reservation which had been established in 1851 by the Fort Laramie Treaty and reestablished in 1868 by the Fort Laramie Treaty. And so the Black Hills are guaranteed safe. But are the Black Hills in fact within the Great Sioux Reservation? Custer's calculations, actually the calculations by his chief topographer, Captain Ludlow, confirm that Bear Butte is in fact within the Great Sioux Reservation. And so it would be illegal for prospectors to come into the Black Hills, prospectors to in fact begin mining the gold that the government feels they very badly need. The Black Hills were the Great Sioux Reservation. Unfortunately, when Custer came through in 1874, the word got out immediately, because on August the 2nd, 1874, when Custer was camped at what was then called Custer's Park, Custer sent one of his chief scouts, Lonesome Charlie Reynolds, down to Fort Laramie, where Lonesome Charlie gave the report to the news media that gold had been found on August the 2nd at French Creek in the Custer Park. As early as September and October, parties were formed. The government forbid them to come in. The government threatened to arrest them, confiscate their merchandise, burn their wagons, but a small party came anyhow, a party of 27 men and 1 woman. The Custer expedition actually came through with no trouble from the Indians, basically because the Indians looked upon the party as being far too powerful to challenge. And that's why Custer brought this size a command. But when the 27 men and 1 woman brought their wagons up from Sioux City, Iowa, the wagons coming in by way of Nebraska, they call themselves the O'Neill Colony, suggesting that they're coming to O'Neill, Nebraska. That was their supposed destination. And when they got to O'Neill, then they cut north and come into what is ultimately known as the Custer Trail. Now, they come into the Black Hills from the due east, And as they come into the Black Hills, December the 9th, 1874, they're spotted by the Crazy Horse Band, who regularly camp for the winter up at Bear Butte. The Crazy Horse Band charge down off the mountain toward that wagon train, the Gordon Russell party that's coming in. Fortunately for the prospectors, unfortunately for the Indians, a blizzard suddenly comes up. The wagon train is lost in the blizzard. The Crazy Horse Band can't find them. The Crazy Horse Band can't drive them out. And unfortunately for the Indians, the prospector party follow the Custer Trail backward all the way down to French Creek, where they confirm that gold has been found. And with the gold, more prospector parties now are beginning to come in. With the prospector party was one woman. Her name was Annie Donna Talent. She's 43 years of age. She has a 9-year-old son. It seems that her husband, David, had a tendency to wander away from time to time, and so she came along on the expedition. The entire Gordon Russell party, except for those who had already left to bring new parties into the Black Hills, those who are remaining at the Gordon Stockade in the Custer Park are arrested by the military and taken down to Fort Laramie and then to Cheyenne. And then they form up again and come back to the Black Hills. Annie Donna Talent would be a school teacher here in the Black Hills and ultimately superintendent of a couple of the different school systems. She wrote her book, The Black Hills Are the Last Hunting Grounds of the Dakota, at her son's home, Robert Burt's home here in Sturgis. In the late 1890s, Annie Donna Talent died here at her son's home in Sturgis in 1901, and her body was taken back to Elgin, Illinois.
Stay tuned for more episodes of The Adventures of Chris and Mike as we continue our tour with Chuck Rambo at the historic Fort Meade Museum. And please subscribe to my channel.